Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Site for Wight, welcoming you to this week's Talking News. This week, Karen has started with us as our Member Support Officer. She has already been out to see a couple of members individually, delivering things for them and helping getting them out of the house. This is exactly what we had hoped would happen. Any member who wishes to have any one-to-one support, please don't hesitate to call us on 522205. That is 522205, and we'll be able to help you. We have also had a little bit of a reshuffle round at work. Chris, who previously was upstairs, will now be on reception all the time, greeting members, taking telephone calls and dealing with deliveries in the general office administration. Welcome to reception, Chris. So, with Susan still dealing with all of the member activities and everything to do with our volunteers, Elaine running the befriending programme, Jasmine running our schools programme, Debbie managing the shop with the help of Hilary, and myself overseeing all of the operations and, of course, the vitally important fundraising. We really are a working team together now. Our October newsletter is now with the printers and will be distributed on the 1st of November. Please, everybody, stay safe. Thank you, Lisa.
Seawall damaged, trees toppled, and flood alerts in force following night of heavy rain. From Island Echo, read by Chris. A night of torrential rain and gusty winds has seen trees brought down, sea defences damaged, and 2 flood alerts issued for the Isle of Wight on Thursday morning. Heavy downpours throughout Wednesday evening and overnight into Thursday led to the flooding of the island's roads, with locations such as Middle Road noted as being particularly bad. Nettleston Hill in Pondwell was closed due to flooding, but has since reopened. In Sandown, a large tree fell across the carriageway at the Broadway, partially blocking the road at around 3 a.m. Similar has happened on Bullen Road in Ryde, which is currently blocked in both directions whilst contractors work to clear the debris. Ryde Seafront took a battering overnight, with 1 tree ripped from its roots. Another tree at Western Gardens has also been damaged by the strong winds, losing a complete limb. Over in Cowes, sea defences have been damaged by the strong waves, as captured by Island Echo reader Terry White on his morning dog walk. Railings have been ripped out of the concrete along the promenade. The Environment Agency has been forced to issue an alert for the St John's area of Ryde overnight, where the water level in the Monkton Mead Brook is high and rising. In the last 24 hours alone, almost half a month's worth of rain, 45 millimetres, has been recorded at Ryde. The water level in the Eastern Yar also remains very high at Alveston, with a flood alert now in force for the Eastern Yar between Bembridge and Whitwell. Flooding could be seen at Horringford, Alveston and Langbridge, and at Golf Links Road in Sandown. With this in mind, local residents are being urged to ensure that any pumps used to protect property can operate. Residents should also consider installing flood protection. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service have been kept busy with over 120 calls being dealt with by the control room across the region.
Alison, reading an article from On the Wight. New chairman of CLA Isle of Wight branch. We must embrace new islanders to help boost rural economy. The new chairman of the Isle of Wight branch of the Country Land and Business Association, CLA, Colin Boswell, believes the recent influx of new entrants to the island's rural scene make it a time of change and opportunity. Mr Boswell replaced Lawrence Taylor at a CLA committee meeting last night, Monday, in one of the most important rural roles on the island. Father of 5, Mr Boswell and his family run the garlic farm near Newchurch, a business which includes self-catering cottages and yurts, as well as a fast-growing farm shop, restaurant and cafe, attracting more than 200,000 visitors a year. He moved to the Isle of Wight as a child in the 1950s, where his father pioneered the growing of sweet corn in the UK, supplying the expanding supermarkets from the 1960s. Fast forward several decades, and Mr Boswell says there is a new influx of fresh faces to the island, who have the ability to help its rural economy evolve and grow. a group he calls the New Victorians. Mr. Boswell, who frequently rides his bike around the island and has observed their impact, said, "New island residents are increasingly present in the rural scene, and it is important we embrace them. I note the many changes taking place in upgrades of rural housing, a continual work in progress accommodating the needs of our new rural residents. Improved Wi-Fi technology links everywhere, boosting the number of people who commit to a full-time investment in island life week in, week out, rather than just arriving on a Friday night. I consider myself fortunate to meet many new islanders. They are relatively informed, considerably younger than our average age gathered here, and with the energy and tenacity to make an island life a rich and rewarding one. Our new Victorians arrive with money to invest in improving their new location, hopefully to the benefit of all. I see the island CLA as a natural home for many of them. We should be welcoming them and offering ourselves as a go-to resource of knowledge and contacts within this community." Mr. Boswell married Jenny in 1976 and joined his parents in partnership on the family farm. Over the next 20 years, it grew from 300 to 1,500 acres, mostly sweet corn, and imported 2,500 tonnes of garlic a year from around the world to supply UK supermarkets. In 1999, the business supplying supermarkets and manufacturers was sold, and Colin and Jenny returned to their roots as a family farming business, specialising in garlic, but continuing to diversify into 70 garlic product lines. Over the last 15 years, Mr. Boswell has travelled widely researching the origins of garlic, from Kazakhstan to eastern Turkey, and works as a garlic consultant across the world. He also features in TV cooking and gardening series related to garlic. As the CLA Isle of Wight branch chairman, Mr. Boswell will be representing farmers, landowners and rural businesses across the island. He added, "I am grateful to Lawrence for chairing the island CLA through an extraordinary time. Thank you, Lawrence, for taking on a totally unexpected situation dumped in your lap with such good grace, equanimity and attention to detail." CLA South East Regional Director Tim Bamford said, "We wish to place on record our sincere thanks to Lawrence Taylor for his tremendous work, ideas and enthusiasm over the course of his chairmanship. We are delighted to welcome Colin Boswell into the role and look forward to working closely with him over the next few years. For more information about the CLA and its work, visit the website and follow at CLA Southeast on Twitter."
This is Michael reading from Isle of Wight Radio. £1 million funding to help hard-up Isle of Wight households this winter. The Isle of Wight Council will be given £1.13 million to help households most in need of the cost of daily essentials this winter, as part of a £500 million fund. The Household Support Fund, announced earlier this month, is designed to last throughout the winter months. The money will be distributed by the Isle of Wight Council to households in need of some additional help. This will broadly consist of small grants to meet daily needs, such as food, clothing and utilities. David Rutley, Minister for Welfare Delivery, has said, "This funding is there to support those most in need by providing extra help over winter, and by working through local councils we can make sure the vulnerable people in our communities get this vital support." The new fund is part of a wider package of support the government is providing this winter. This includes 2.2 million low-income households being given a £140 rebate on energy bills through the Warm Home discount, and the cold weather payment providing £25 extra a week for those in need in areas where the temperature is consistently below zero. Those who think they could benefit should contact the council for more details on what will be available in their community. A total of £1,131,576.08 is available on the island.
This is Patrina reading an article from Island Echo. Abandoned boats seized by council as action taken against nuisance vessels. Abandoned boats are being seized by the Isle of Wight Council in a bid to clear berths and seek unpaid fees across the island. The council started the process against abandoned boats earlier this year, with notices put on vessels in prominent places in July. After a 14-day period, if no action is taken by the owner, the boat is listed through public notices in the back of local papers, giving owners another 2 weeks to contact the council and pay any outstanding fees. At Whitegate Pier in Cowes, boats called Patch, Dory and Morning Glory were among those under threat of recovery. An Isle of Wight Council spokesperson said, at the end of the period, if the owner failed to respond, the authority was within its rights to take possession and dispose of them, while still looking to recover any outstanding harbour fees. Speaking at the Council's Harbour Committee meeting recently, Jonathan Brand, the Council's senior harbour master, said 20 boats had been served with notices across Ryde and Newport harbours, at the Folly in Whippingham and at Whitegate Pier. Some boats had been cleared from Whitegate Pier and moved to the Folly moorings, although Mr. Brand said the process of getting rid of them had not yet been started. Councillors on the committee commended the actions of the harbour team and hoped for a positive impact on council revenue when the berths were made available for new users.
First scooters, now bikes. Beryl to introduce e-bike scheme to the Isle of Wight. From Island Echo, read by Chris. Beryl is launching an innovative scheme on the Isle of Wight to provide access to electric bikes, e-bikes, for island residents who regularly travel between Newport and Cowes. The operator, who already runs the e-scooter hire pilot on the island, is making e-bikes available in the towns of Newport and Cowes over the next 6 months, with a focus on underrepresented groups. Participants will be able to use the bikes at no cost for 1 month and will be incentivised through mileage payments of 60p per mile up to £50 for the month. Delivered in partnership with the Isle of Wight Council and the Department for Transport, the scheme has a number of key objectives. Providing those who may not currently have access to an e-bike with an opportunity to try one. Reducing single occupancy private car journeys between Newport and Cowes. The two towns are connected by the Red Squirrel Trail, a former railway line which was closed as a result of beaching cuts in the 1960s. The trail is just over 5 kilometres in length and offers an attractive traffic-free cycling experience, raising awareness of the role that e-bikes can play in replacing short car journeys, reducing congestion and air pollution for everyone. Overall, it will run for 6 months, and Beryl will be asking participants for feedback throughout in order to gauge the impact that the e-bikes have. Growing in popularity, e-bikes have a range of benefits, including enabling people to make further and more journeys by bike than they would on a standard bicycle. The e-bikes available as part of this scheme are the same as those that Beryl offers for hire within its existing schemes in Norwich, Hereford and Watford. Anyone interested in applying should contact the Beryl website. Beryl's CEO Philip Ellis said, "We're delighted to be running this scheme on the Isle of Wight. As the UK's only B Corp certified micro-mobility operator, playing our part in improving accessibility to active travel is a core aspect of our values. Scooters on the island have already been used by over 12,500 individual users, and the benefits that e-bikes can provide should be enjoyed by as many people as possible. With price often being a barrier to ownership, schemes such as this will play a key role in widening and expanding access. We can't wait to see people riding in Newport and Cowes and look forward to hearing people's experiences of using our e-bikes. Councillor Phil Jordan, Cabinet Member for Highways, PFI, Transport and Infrastructure adds, "I am especially delighted that the island is running an e-bike scheme and confident the trial period will be a great success. I'm sure many people will want to take advantage of these fantastic modes of sustainable travel, and I look forward to further expansion of the e-bike scheme around the island in the not too distant future."
This is Alison, reading an article from On the Wight entitled Isle of Wight Dentists Physically, Mentally and Emotionally Drained. NHS dentists on the Isle of Wight have pulled out of a national scheme to provide additional sessions, as bosses say staff are physically, mentally and emotionally drained. On the island, dental practices are at capacity, fighting what Health Watch calls the Isle of Wight's biggest health inequality. A shocking report from the watchdog found almost half of islanders are finding it difficult to get treatment. Practices were closed for nearly 4 months at the start of the COVID pandemic, which added to the backlog of patients already seeking treatment. The number of people waiting for treatment remains high, with some forced to find private treatment due to the long waiting list or lack of practices accepting patients. Alison Cross, the South East's Senior Dental Commissioning Manager for NHS England, told the Isle of Wight Council funding had been offered to practices to run additional hours outside their normal time slots. Across the country, practices were offered £400 to provide 3 more hours of work, in line with the British Dental Guide rate, as well as an enhancement for working outside of core hours. Despite some island practices initially taking up the deal and offering sessions, they all pulled out within weeks. She told the council, "It has to be recognised that many practices are struggling to do these additional hours to help us out, as the majority of staff are physically, mentally and emotionally drained. The offer is still there for practices who feel they have the ability to offer the extra sessions. Our doors are open, but at the moment none have come forward to say they are able to do this." One of the major issues facing the island, Ms. Cross said, is the recruitment of dentists and their willingness to stay here or travel across the Solent. An oral health assessment is being carried out across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, which will highlight the issues and allow the NHS to build into the gaps in service. The assessment started last month and is expected to be completed early next year.
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Planning applications submitted to convert 2 Sandown eyesores. A hotel company is aiming to take action in Sandown to fix some of the town's iconic eyesores. Isle of Wight Hotels owns a number of venues and plots in the seaside town and has now heeded calls to action to try to develop. With 2 planning applications, the company, which has developer Nick Spiker as one of the directors, is seeking permission from the Isle of Wight Council to develop the dilapidated outbuildings of the Grand Hotel. It also wants to build on land where the former Savoy apartments were, on the corner of Victoria Road and Avenue Road near the library. The Grand Plans 24/01422/FUL will see work on the outbuildings to the rear of the hotel on Culver Parade, demolishing the 4 former apartments and swimming pool to construct 4 new residential apartments. Fire crews were called to the Grand Hotel earlier this month, October, when a large blaze broke out, causing what Hampshire and the Isle of Wight Fire Service said was 80% damage to one of the single-storey buildings. The application was submitted to the council months before the fire, but it was only validated by the planning authority in September. Despite the former Savoy apartments being already demolished, agents on behalf of the hotel company has said there has been trouble selling the site for years now. Planning permission for the demolition of the derelict apartments was approved in 2015, with the potential to construct 19 flats on the footprint, but plans changed in 2018 to build 12 houses instead. In planning documents submitted by MJH Architectural Services, the agents say the 12-dwelling scheme is not viable due to groundwork construction costs, so it was necessary to look again and produce a scheme that would be feasible. Now the company is looking to build 3 4-bed houses on the site instead. Comments on both applications can be submitted to the Council's planning portal by November the 12th.
This is Patrina reading an article from Island Echo. Bridlesford Farm Shop now equipped with defibrillator thanks to customer donations. The team behind Bridlesford Lodge Farm Shop has announced that a new, publicly accessible defibrillator has been installed at the site thanks to public donations. Made possible by donations from customers of the business, the purchase and installation of the AED has also been made possible by a donation made in memory of a customer, Jo, who sadly lost her battle with cancer earlier this year. Jules from Bridlesford said, Paul, Jo's husband, wanted her to always be part of Bluebells and Bridlesford, as she felt relaxed and very at home when they visited. Paul made the trip over from Bournemouth to sit and chat with myself and Steve from Isle of Wight Defibrillators, who kindly supplied the life-saving piece of equipment. We hope to never need to use it, but are delighted to offer this to our community customers and staff when in need.
Campaigners hail Arreton oil decision as massive victory. From Island Radio, read by Chris. David can overcome Goliath. That was the message from campaigners celebrating a massive victory after exploratory oil drilling was refused on the island. The Isle of Wight Council's Planning Committee unanimously voted to reject UK Oil and Gas's plans for the construction, operation and decommissioning of 2 boreholes in Arreton. Committee members were not willing to risk the island's biosphere status or tourist economy. After almost 7 years of campaigning, Don't Drill the Wight, DDTW, thanked members of the group and those who helped them be heard. Sylvia May of DDTW, who spoke at Tuesday's meeting, said the committee members were the stars of the show. She said, "My personal thanks to each and every one for doing what is so obviously right for our island. This may not be the end of the line, but it is a massive victory. Our efforts over the past 2 years have been intensive, but it proves David can overcome Goliath. I want to thank all the parish councils, islanders and visitors who submitted over 3,400 objections, including one from MP Bob Seeley, and those who signed our petition. A special thanks to our hard-working committee, members and subscribers. We could not have done this without you." Welcoming the win, Isle of Wight Green Party spokesperson Vix Lothian said, "This was what teamwork could achieve through groups including DDTW, Blue Seas Protection and Extinction Rebellion campaigning, informing and mobilising thousands of islanders to engage with the planning process."
This is Alison, reading an article from the Isle of Wight Radio entitled Plans for Lake Bungalow Refused Twice is Appeal to the Government. Plans for a bungalow in Lake, which were refused twice by the Isle of Wight Council, are being appealed to the government. Applicants, the WS Group, has repeatedly tried to get permission to build a 2-bedroom bungalow on vacant land between the Premier Inn and Broadley Primary School's field. Now it is arguing the bungalow is much needed due to the under-delivery of housing on the island, and it would not have the negative impacts the Isle of Wight Council said it would. The Council's planning authority had originally deemed the scheme inappropriate due to its position, scale and design in 2019. Revised plans were submitted, asking the Council to propose solutions to any issues it might have, instead of rejecting the application outright. Council officers, however, rejected the plans again in March this year, saying it remained largely unchanged and fell on 4 of the 5 grounds it previously did. Not accepting the decision, the WS Group has appealed the Council's decision to the government's watchdog, the Planning Inspectorate. The appeal was lodged against the Isle of Wight Council in April, but the investigation into the application started last month. Planning agent acting on behalf of the group, LRJ Planning, said the concerns of the planning authority on the impact of the public right-of-way, character and appearance of the area are not accepted. It is argued, with the council being told to favour sustainable development due to the under-provision of housing, the bungalow would have no adverse impact that would significantly and demonstrably outweigh its benefits. Addressing further objections, LRJ Planning said it would be sustainably located and there would not be detrimental to pedestrian safety. The appeal is currently being considered by the Planning Inspectorate, but no decision date has yet been set. Lewis Tudor Smith, owner of WS Group, is facing charges from the Isle of Wight Council for failing to comply with planning enforcement notices on nearby land in Lake. Mr. Tudor Smith, who is charged alongside fellow businessman Mark King for the offence, have both denied the 5 charges against them.
This is Michael reading from On the Wight. Top tips on how to help your dog through fireworks nights. With fireworks night fast approaching, dog experts from Treat Your Dog give their best and brightest advice for dog owners. Whether you've had your dog for a long time or you are one of the many people who have adopted a pandemic puppy, this advice will save you a lot of stress and worry about your beloved pooch. Many dogs suffer on fireworks nights, and we're sure your furry friends will love you even more for taking this advice. Tip 1. Mask the noises and sounds. Keeping the curtains and windows closed can help to lower the effects of the sounds and visuals of the fireworks on your dog. It is also important to mask the noises with calmer sounds, such as the TV, the radio, or even calming audio for dogs. If you decide to go out to a fireworks display, you must leave your dog at home and make sure you keep the TV, radio, or calming audio on. Tip 2. Distraction. Sometimes your dog can be easily distracted from the fireworks with a food puzzle. Some challenging food puzzle toys can keep your dog distracted for a couple of hours whilst they dig for whatever treat or food you decide to reward them with. This will distract them long enough for the fireworks display to take its course. This can encourage your dog to focus on something more positive to create a calmer environment. Speaking calmly can also help to keep your dog distracted through assurance. Tip 3. Desensitization and sound familiarization. A helpful method is to train your dog to be desensitized towards distressing sounds. Using training sounds can help to ease your dog into becoming familiar with the sounds associated with distressing situations, such as fireworks. Tip 4. Build a safe place. In brackets, extra tip, add an item of your clothing. Sometimes allowing your dog to hide and feel safe is the best way to calm them down. Forcing your dog out of their safe space can increase their stress and cause further discomfort. Even if their safe space is behind the sofa, giving your dog the space they need can help. Do not restrict your dog to a single room. If they do not want to be in that room, they will become even more uncomfortable. Let them choose their safe space. A further tip: add an item of your worn clothing to their safe place. The familiarity of your scent can help to calm them down. Tip 5. Ensure they are microchipped, wearing a tag. In the unfortunate situation that your dog makes a run for it due to its high levels of stress, your dog must be microchipped and wearing a tag. This will allow you to find your dog easily and make sure that they are safe. However, following our tips will significantly decrease the chance of your dog running away. Tip 6. Pandemic puppies. With most large fireworks events cancelled during lockdown 2 in 2021, this is the first year since the pandemic that local firework displays will be back up and running. Throughout the pandemic, we saw a spike of dog owners, and many of you may not have experienced the loud fireworks display since you increased the size of your family with your furry friend. If you live close to a big display, pay extra caution as the volume and significance of the fireworks will take a bigger toll on your dog. Running out of time to prepare. You can purchase our pet remedy, de-stress and calming party season survival kit. Heather Hiley, founder of Treat Your Dog, commented, "Being ready and prepared can make all the difference. It is important that we show our dogs the care and love that they show us. With a spike in dog owners, especially puppies, throughout the pandemic, many of you haven't seen how much fireworks can affect your dog. Stress can increase dramatically for dogs, and being ready and prepared can make all the difference. So microchip your dogs, allow them a safe space, distract them, and if you can, train them to become desensitized to the volume, then you and your dog will be able to enjoy fireworks night to the full. Our de-stress products will also help owners to make sure their dogs are safe whilst allowing themselves to enjoy the fireworks and celebrations at the same time."
This is Patrina reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Islanders encouraged to talk about their mental health through COVID pandemic. An island-wide listening tour gets underway this month, encouraging people to talk about their mental health and well-being during the past 18 months. Healthwatch Isle of Wight has launched the Mental Health Listening Tour in partnership with Michael Lilly, the Isle of Wight Council's mental health champion, to reach out to island communities to hear from people directly about their experiences in the pandemic and its impact on their mental health and well-being. The feedback will be published in a report next spring, which will be shared with key services on the island, including the Isle of Wight Council, the Isle of Wight National Health Service Trust, and the island's Mental Health and Suicide Prevention Partnership. Healthwatch Isle of Wight manager Joanne Smith said the report would celebrate good practice as well as highlight any gaps in services. She said, "Mental health and well-being are important for all people and were chosen by the public as a priority topic for Healthwatch Isle of Wight in our Prioritisation survey earlier this year. We know the COVID COVID-19 pandemic has affected islanders in many different ways. Social isolation, the distress of enforced quarantines, lack of routine. This, coupled with homeschooling and financial pressures, has led to an awareness that mental health and well-being were potentially another unseen victim of the pandemic. We are delighted, therefore, to be working closely with the Isle of Wight Council's mental health champion, Councillor Michael Lilly, to spend time with local people within their local communities, speaking to them about their experiences during the pandemic. Following our listening tour, we will be feeding back to key services to ensure that the voice of local people is heard and used to improve health outcomes for everyone. The tour starts its journey in West Wight on the 18th of October at the Annex behind Christchurch, New Road, Totland. This will be followed by sessions at Ventnor Anxiety Cafe, Sainsbury Gardens on the 25th of October, the West Wight Sports and Community Centre Freshwater on the 2nd of November, and Carers Isle of Wight Riverside Centre Newport on the 4th of November. Full details, as well as further dates and venues, will be posted on the Healthwatch Isle of Wight website and Facebook page. To ensure each session remains COVID secure, people are asked to book in advance by contacting the venues directly or emailing inquiries at healthwatchisleofwight.co.uk. Anyone who would prefer to provide anonymous feedback or would like to request a visit to another group or area of the island should contact Healthwatch Isle of Wight using the contact details. Further contact details can be found on their website. Councillor Lilly added, after 18 months of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's important to have a fresh look at the mental well-being of all our residents. The key is to get out to every part of the island and to listen to people from all walks of life and ages to better understand how people are feeling and what mental well-being means to them and what support they have or, if not, what they need. There are many great support projects across the island, and this is an opportunity to highlight these and get them the recognition they deserve. Simon Bryant, the island's Director of Public Health, said, "As we recover from the pandemic, it is so important we understand people's experiences and the impact this has had on their mental and emotional well-being. This will help us to develop ways to better help people to improve their own mental well-being and to ensure people can access the right support at the right time."
Isle of Wight road races, motor race order now submitted to Isle of Wight Council from On the Wight, read by Chris. Just a couple of days after the Isle of Wight TT Diamond races was due to take place, there's an announcement from Isle of Wight road races. On Tuesday, they posted the following message to their social media accounts. Significant day for the Isle of Wight road races. Our application for a motor race order has been submitted to the Isle of Wight Council, along with the permit issued by the ACU. 6 months now until the event. Great to have Steve Plater back on the island with us yesterday. It was a bit wet and windy to be looking at the Chale course, but we've been able to move along our planning for the paddock area at Atherfield. Thanks for that, Steve, and to the White Mouse Inn for providing a bit of shelter. The motorcycle races are due to take place on the 20th to 23rd of April 2022, near the end of the school Easter holidays. The Chale circuit runs for approximately 12.4 miles using closed public roads through Chale, Chale Green, Kingston, Shorewell, Limerston, Bryston, and is connected by a long section of the military road via Atherfield.
This is Alison. reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio entitled Arrest on Suspicion of Murder in Connection with Yarmouth Pensioner's Death. Isle of Wight police have confirmed that they arrested a man on suspicion of murder in connection with the death of a woman in Yarmouth in September. The information about the suspect's detention was revealed on Friday, October the 15th, as police confirmed the woman, who died in hospital on September the 22nd, was identified as Pia Massey. According to police, the 70-year-old fell seriously ill at an address in Yarmouth High Street before being transported for treatment. Officers said they are continuing to investigate the circumstances surrounding Pia's death. The man who had been arrested on suspicion of murder was bailed until November the 8th. Officers have given no further information about the suspect. Police added an appeal to people living locally. We ask the community to please not speculate on the circumstances and instead provide any information to police on 101, quoting Operation Sealam with the reference 442 103 80671.
This is Michael reading an article from Ireland Echo. Ventnor named nation's most child-friendly beach in new study. The Isle of Wight has been named home of the most kid-friendly beach in the UK, according to a new study that ranks the nation's coastlines based on their suitability for little ones. Safest Shores, the UK's kid-friendly coastlines, created by Island Cottage Holidays, reveals the UK's top beaches best suited for kids based on a range of metrics including safety, entertainment, accessibility and lifeguard availability. The study gathers data on safety and happiness scores, TripAdvisor ratings, transport availability and frequency, as well as kids' menu available and price data to find the most accommodating coastlines for kids around the UK. The study found it's Ventnor Beach on the Isle of Wight that's been crowned the safest and most entertaining coastline for families to visit. Parents can have peace of mind while away on the Isle of Wight, as Ventnor Beach boasts the best safety score of all beaches analysed, 5, and friendliness score of 7.59 out of 10, and has a lifeguard on hand, proving to be the safest of all the beaches analysed in the study. The coast also proves to have top scores for entertainment value, earning 10 out of 10 for available activities based on TripAdvisor reviews and ratings. Top attractions including the Black Gang Chine amusement park and the Isle of Wight Donkey Sanctuary. And while Ventnor doesn't have the best public transport availability on the coastlines analysed in the study, it makes up for it with a good food score of 4.3 out of 10. Woolacombe Beach in Devon came in second for the most kid-friendly beach with a safety score 7.47 out of 10 for friendliness. A provided lifeguard service, great public transport links and a wide availability of attractions including Borough Farm. White Sands Beach in Pembrokeshire also made the top 3 best beaches for children with 2.2 for its safety score and 7.49 out of 10, and is also equipped with lifeguard support and excellent transport availability and frequency. The study also looked at the top activities available to children on coastlines, with steam railways proving to be the most popular activity overall, followed by aquariums and amusement parks based on TripAdvisor's review and rating data. Shannon Keary, PR manager at Island Cottage Holidays, commented on the study. With staycations on the rise and family once again looking to get away during half-term, now schools have reconvened, it's never been more important to pick the right destination. While local safety is obviously a key factor, it's interesting to see how particular beaches compare when it comes to other metrics, including entertainment value, accessibility, and food provisions for little ones, to make sure they're getting the most out of their trip away. To see the full results of the Safest Shores study and to see which beaches are the most child-friendly, visit https://guides.islandcottageholidays.com/kid-friendly-coastlines.
This is Katrina reading an article from Island Echo. Plans for home in pub car park to be appealed following permission refusal. Plans for a house in the car park of the Three Bishops pub in Bryston are being appealed to the government again after the Isle of Wight Council again refused planning permission. The applicants, Punch Partnerships, are hoping for a change of luck, for it's a proposal for a 3-bedroomed house. An application was first submitted in early 2020, but was refused by the Isle of Wight Council and then dismissed at appeal by the Planning Inspectorate. After making revisions to the plan, it was again refused by the local planning authority in November 2020, and the decision has once again been appealed. On behalf of the applicant, CPC Planning Consultants, in a statement to the Inspectorate, say the majority of negative impacts alleged by the Council have been erroneously carried forward from the previous refusal, despite not being upheld by the government body. CPC says the applicant has sought pre-application advice and worked on feedback, but the Council has not sought to engage proactively with them. Despite that, the Council refused the application on the grounds it would not protect or enhance the character of Bryston Conservation Area or Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty, as well as being an overdevelopment of the site. Addressing those issues, CPC said by reducing the height, changing its position and reorientating it, the house had been heavily revised to ensure it complemented the conservation area.
The George Hotel's food hygiene rating of 1. Read the full inspection report from On the Wight, read by Chris. An inspection by environmental health inspectors at the George Hotel in Yarmouth has resulted in the high-end establishment being landed with a food hygiene rating of 1. The most recent inspection took place on the 11th of September. Inspectors have called for immediate action for 7 issues, with another 5 issues needing to be resolved within 1 week or 1 month. Some of the failures included food found past its use-by date, oysters and fish that were not date labelled, number of high-risk food vacuum-packed without date labels, clean and dirty plates too close to raw and cooked food vacuum packers, increasing risk of food poisoning, raw chicken stored on top shelves of walk-in chiller next to open container of lettuce, lack of easily accessible hand-washing basins, hand-washing basin full of utensils, food containers stored on floor of walk-in chiller, dirty work surfaces, floor grates dirty with food debris, area around waste bin dirty with food debris, build-up of dirt around door rims, underneath of shelves dirty, seal to fridge split, damaged floor surfaces, missing filter from extraction canopy. News on the Wight got in touch with the George Hotel on Monday for a comment about the inspection, but they failed to get back to us prior to publication. This is not the first time the George has found themselves with a low food hygiene rating. In 2015, the hotel was given a 0 rating, and by 2018, it had only managed to achieve a rating of 1.
Good morning. Reading the county press this morning will be Lynn Patey
and Imelda Corrai. And before we start the second part of the county press, here is this week's society news. The new swimming group at Medina is having a break for 2 weeks due to school holidays and will restart on Monday the 1st of November at 1:30 p.m. The group have exclusive use of the pool and are looking for new members. So if you're interested in joining, please call the office for more details. The cost is £5 for swimming. Transport is available if requested. Coffee and chat is every Wednesday at Millbrook House from 10 a.m. until 11:30, and it is only £1 to include the cake and coffee. Come along and spend time with members and staff discussing various topics. The Thursday Mix and Mingle is held every week starting at 10:30 and finishing at 2 p.m. If you would like to come along, please call the office to book a space. Transport can be arranged if required. This week, the group enjoyed an old-fashioned sing-song, which both members, volunteers and staff thoroughly enjoyed. The monthly stride is next Friday, the 29th of October. The planned walk this month sees the group starting from the Horse and Groom pub in Ningwood and walking a circular route around Hampstead back to the pub for a nice lunch. If you would like to join, please call the office for more details. Our book group is held at Millbrook House once a month. Members can either choose to receive a USB stick or CD from the RNIB, the new chosen title, and then discuss when they meet together. The group is looking for new members to join, so if you love reading, please call the office and they can send out your preferred method. It's free to join, and our next meeting is on November the 10th, starting at 2 p.m.
And now some upcoming dates for your diary. The charity have plenty of events and activities planned in the next couple of months and thought we should share them with you so you can place them in your diaries. On November the 11th, Millbrook House will be celebrating Armistice Day. Morris, our wonderful volunteer, will be coming along to sing some songs and entertain us all. This is open to all members, volunteers and friends. If you wish to book a space, please call the office. The meeting starts at 10:30, and we will of course observe the 2-minute silence at 11. We have been very fortunate to be given 20 spaces at the ice rink on November the 20th in Newport. If you fancy being the next Torval and Dean, please call the office and book. It's first come, first served basis. We have our Christmas lunch booked at the Isle of Wight College on November the 25th. It is 3-course for only £10, and this is open to volunteers and members, and once again is limited to 50 places, so call the office to book your space. We have our Christmas coffee morning at Millbrook House on Saturday the 27th of November between 10:30 and 12:30. We will have a variety of stalls and refreshments on offer, so it is a chance for you to empty out your drawers of any items you think would be suitable to sell and kindly donate to us for this event. As always, we are very happy to accept any donations of items suitable to either sell or use as raffle prizes. And finally, our annual story writing competition awards evening is on Monday the 6th of December at the Riverside Centre, Newport. And finally, our annual story writing competition awards evening is on Monday the 6th of December at the Riverside Centre, Newport. It is still not too late to enter the competition, so if you are at a loose end and would like to write a story on this year's theme, Vision, please call the office or download an entry form for the rules to be in with a chance of winning some fantastic prizes. Winning stories once again will be read by our celebrity readers. It could be your chance of stardom.
And now we go to letters to the editor. And there's this one, like it or not, oil is necessary for the foreseeable future. And this is from Tiny Luca of Brading. It appears that a vociferous minority have hijacked the front pages of the county press, together with a coincidental letter from the Green Party supporting their cause. Another successful marketing campaign. However, political rhetoric, misinformation and scaremongering have obscured the facts, and the contest has been ignored. We know fossil fuels damage the planet, and we know we need to reduce their use. The most aggressive global CO2 reduction scenario envisaged to meet the Paris 1.5C global warming target forecasts, the use of oil will decline to only 50% of current consumption levels within 50 years. The UK has a national debt of £2+ trillion, more than £30,000 per person, a large part of which needs to be paid back, which will take a generation or more. The Isle of Wight's share of the debt is £4 billion. Taxes are increasing, but additional value still needs to be created from within the UK. The Green Party statement that there is only 2.5 million barrels of oil below Araton is nonsense. Independent assessment is 227 million barrels mean oil in place and 25 million barrels recoverable, medium with a range of 12 to 49 million barrels. The Green Party belittles the value of Isle of Wight oil. At today's oil prices, there may be more than £1 billion of value. It is a fact that oil produced in the UK for UK consumption is less environmentally damaging than imported oil. Transport environmental cost is less, and oil environmental operating standards are likely to be higher. It is a fact that freshwater aquifers are protected during the drilling production process. The Green Party statement that hydrocarbon exploitation will devastate the Isle of Wight is nonsense. Developments of this kind need unambiguous local rules to be defined by the Isle of Wight Council to protect the countryside, tourism and the aquifers, etc. Tight oversight of both operations and development planning by the government, statutory authority and a competent operator. A safe, environmental sensitive development can be achieved. Finally, 4,410 islanders have signed the no drilling petition. 137 have not.
And now a letter from Ian McKee from Totland. Does COP26 need to fly thousands across the globe? Isle of Wight Green Party spokesperson Vix Lothian mentioned in her letter, County Press 15th of the 10th, 21, the UN Climate Change Conference being held next month in Glasgow, known as COP26. People would be right in wondering why upwards of 40,000 people will be flying in, 15,000 of whom will be in official capacity representing 140 nations, the rest being campaigners, consultants, media and financiers, to Scotland to seek a solution to reducing emissions when they could just have organised the whole thing via conference calls and email. An e-conference would have saved the burning of millions of tonnes of aviation fuel required to jet in the various dignitaries and entourages and the UN could have led by example. Reuters reported that at the 2015 Paris conference, tiny Guinea sent 398 official delegates, Morocco 439, Côte d'Ivoire 338, Peru 322, Burkina Faso 256, while the UK sent 96 and Germany 114. There are two ways of interpreting this. Either the developed industrial economies do not take these conferences seriously, or other countries use them as an excuse for a Christmas shopping trip. Either way, these conferences tend not to be a very good or valuable use of resources, and I am surprised that the Green Party have not acknowledged this.
Under fire police could regain confidence with probe. This is from Stephen Kenwood of Shanklin. Never mind about all this levelling up nonsense. Isn't it more important to just level with the British public? Dominic Raab, Elizabeth Truss, Priti Patel, Chris Skidmore and Kwasi Kwarteng all contributed to the book Britannia Unchained, which portrays the British as among the worst idlers in the world. I am sure they would know about such things, but on matters considerably worse. The Department for Business estimates the bounce back loan scheme would cost the taxpayer £27 billion in fraud or credit losses. That's £27 billion, yes, billion, not million. Enough money to fund the 20th pounds universal credit uplift for 4 years. So who's got this taxpayers' money? Our money. Feckless British workers? Government cronies? Companies? I've checked under my bed. I haven't got it. Perhaps Dame Cressida Dick, when she and her fellow police commissioners have finished gaslighting, would investigate and recover the billions of taxpayers' money that have been paid to companies who have claimed furlough payments for non-existent employees. Although I appreciate it's probably a big ask to request Scotland Yard to go this extra mile.
And now Roger Byatt from Shanklin asks, where were the face masks? While sitting on the St Clair, sailing at 12:40 from Fishbourne on October the 11th, we sent a phone message. The ship was extremely crowded with every seat taken. Our concern, however, was that while sitting on the main deck with all the many seats at the cafe end in view, not a single passenger was wearing a face mask, and hardly any were eating. The company policy was announced over the speakers and on the television with no effect whatsoever. Also, throughout the crossing, not a single member of staff walked by, thus there was no enforcement. This situation is not unusual, as we are frequent travellers with multi-link passes. We suggest this situation should not be allowed to continue, as it creates a significant risk to staff and responsible masked passengers. At the very least, staff should circulate to encourage compliance.
Please don't forget the service we gave. This is from Barry Downs of Sandown. As an ex-serviceman, I can relate to David Yates' need to sell his military medals, which was in the county press on the 15th of October, and wish him well. I joined the RAF in 1969. I was 20 years old and fully weapon-trained services in the Middle East. Between 1974 and 1977, I was in Germany during the Cold War. And then in 1962, we had the Falkland conflict. I retired from the RAF 3 years later. I now have a military pension, but once over the tax threshold, it is taxed. and HMRC are entitled to take up to 50% if I reach that tax band. Nobody seems to understand that if we were able to keep what we earned, some of us would not be looking for help. Due to the pandemic, I had to seek equity release. Otherwise, I will have lost my property. The point is, who cares? Our Island MP doesn't care. HMRC doesn't care. Isle of Wight Council doesn't care. So we just carry on. On the 11th hour of the 11th day, please remember our sacrifices.
The next letter is entitled Island Second Home Crisis and is from J. Robinson from Shanklin. Island-wide and nationwide, there is a nettle that the recent political party powwows failed to grasp. And, to mix metaphors, should they ever do so, they would begin to kill two birds with one stone. It is the numerous second homes which are unoccupied for most of the year. These second homes contribute greatly to the problems of young couples who can't get a first home. There is nothing wrong with owning 2 or 22 accommodation units, as long as they are rented out at a decent, fair rent. But to leave them unoccupied for weeks, sometimes months at a time, when young folk are desperate for somewhere to live, is little short of a crime. A partial solution would be for council tax on unoccupied second homes to be quadrupled. This would either give councils much needed revenue or free up swathes of accommodation. I used to wonder why a person would want to spend a few summer weeks in a second home when, in a place such as our island, there are many good hotels. But I had forgotten what George Orwell called the seemingly bottomless pit of human egotism and selfishness.
Do we need to campaign to get rid of scooters? This comes from Anna Hardy of Shanklin. Here we go again with e-scooters. Despite a number of signs on the coast path from Shanklin to Sandown, several of these wretched things have come zooming by. I expect they are illiterate or think dismount is only for horses. Who recently is benefiting from these things, apart from the hooligans riding them or whoever is hoping to make money from them? Is it going to take a fatality for the powers that be, whoever they are, to say, we take these things seriously, lessons learned, etc.? Are they really still on trial? Or is it a fait accompli? Who are the judges and jury? As far as I can see, and from everyone I talk to, we do not want these things on the island. Do we have to start a campaign?
And now one about cyclists. Cyclists, please stick to the track, says Liam Baker from Northwood. Having, not for the first time, been trapped behind a bus for a quarter of a mile, travelling at 12 miles per hour between Newport and Cowes, because it can't pass a recreational cyclist, may I point out that there is a wonderful cycle path created at huge expense by the Isle of Wight Council between Newport and Cowes, so use it.
This is from Raymond Blair, the Vice President of the County Donegal Historical Society, Ireland. I wonder, could you help me to identify the author of Knighton, Isle of Wight, its Undercliff and neighbourhood, which was apparently published by the county press in 1928? Was it the artist William Henry Bartlett, 1858 to 1932? I know that he was a native of the Isle of Wight, so this identification would seem to make sense. I have written an article about this artist's work in my native county of Donegal, and hence my question. If you know of anything else of relevance to W.A. Bartlett that would be much appreciated, contact me at raeblair@hotmail.com.
Now a letter from B. Wilshire from Totland. Pay MPs more to engage. Dear Editor, when Sir Peter Bottomley suggests MPs should earn a similar salary to GPs, David Holmes in his column, Isle of Wight Observer, October the 15th, was quick to ask, is he hopelessly out of touch? Might I suggest Sir Peter Bottomley, far from being hopelessly out of touch, is spot on the money, given parallels between the two occupations. If regular stories are to be believed, there are those who feel our MP is a little detached when it comes to responding to their concerns. Witness Anthony Towers' letter, silent on other matters too, in the same edition. Not too dissimilar, might I suggest to many GPs reportedly struggling to respond to patients' concerns. If GPs have to be bribed by Savid Javid with more money to become more engaged face-to-face with their patients, why shouldn't MPs be paid more money to become more engaged with their constituents?
Well, now we go on to Wight Memories. And this is particularly about Edwardian postcards and how they captured the era. Okay. Island postcard collectors will know the name William Hogg. He photographed events and street scenes in Ryde in the early 1900s, when he then produced as postcards, selling them from his tobacconist shop and post office at the bottom of George Street in Ryde. These original postcards are highly sought after today, and collectors will pay anything from £10 for a common scene to £40 or more for the rarer ones. Today I have custody about 400 of Hogg's glass negatives. Like all serious photographers in those days, Hogg took photographs using a bulky camera made from wood and brass, which produced glass plate negatives. He could have used a pocket-sized roll film camera, but plate cameras were used because of their much higher quality. The downside was lugging them around from place to place. There was no such thing as an instant snap in those days, before a photograph could be taken. The camera had to be mounted on its wooden tripod, a struggle at the best of times, and then the glass plates were loaded into the camera, one at a time, in a light-proof carrier, and then exposed. There were no digital settings to work out the exposure, just an educated guess, and then it was back to the darkroom to develop the plates. Hogg's negatives that were used to make postcards are glass half plates measuring 6.5 by 4 3/4 inches, much bigger than postcard size, which is 3.5 by 5.5 inches. So to make a postcard, Hogg had to mask his negative down to the smallest format. To do this, Hogg would stick strips of paper directly onto the glass negatives to frame a postcard-sized picture. Finally, before printing, Hogg would plant a title directly onto the glass negative using minute rubber letters. When the photographic paper was exposed to light, the black inked letters would show up as white lines of text. Many of Hogg's negatives still have these titles stamped on them, and the briefest rub with the spirit-soaked piece of cotton wool would remove them. But Mr. Hogg's printed titles are still intact. If they are not wanted on a new print, they can be digitally removed. Postcards were the text messages of their day, and were far more postal collectors and deliveries then than are today. A postcard written in the morning would be delivered later that same day. As a result, the demand for postcards was almost insatiable, and they were produced in their millions. A photograph was allowed on one side of a postcard, and the other side was in two parts, the right-hand side for the address and the left-hand half for a message. The cost of sending a postcard was half an old penny. Thanks to Mr. Hogg, today we have an almost complete photographic record of a Victorian town, frozen forever in a collection of hundreds of glass negatives of the highest quality. Virtually the whole town has been preserved. Hogg has photographed scores of the scenes of every description, covering near the whole of Central Ryde, including roads, buildings, lanes, and many back streets, which were largely ignored by other photographers.
Very few of Mr. Hogg's postcards were topical, and there are two reasons for this. In the first instance, setting up a camera and tripod for a photograph was a cumbersome, time-consuming task that didn't allow for the taking of impromptu photographs. And secondly, topical photographs could only be sold for a very short while before becoming outdated. However, Mr. Hogg sometimes had ways round that. For example, he photographed an unusually late snowfall on April the 26th, 1908, and produced a postcard of it within a few days. But later that year, those same April scenes made another appearance, this time as a Christmas card. With a ton of gear to lug round and set up, Hogg took no chances and would take multiple photos of a scene to make sure of capturing a usable one. His postcard of Cross Street is a good example. Taken in May 1906, Hogg took 3 photos of the same scene within a few moments of each other, so that back in his darkroom he could choose the best one to use as a postcard. On the left-hand side of each photo, the same self-conscious little girl has remained standing in the same place in the road near the curb. The baker has got himself in 2 of the shots. On blowing up the image, he is revealed to be Wright, baker, 41 High Street, Ryde. Preserved for all time are the 10 minutes in the life of Edwardian Ryde, and the plates are as sparkling and pristine as the day Mr. Hogg developed them. As to the photographic quality, would Mr. Hogg swap his camera for a modern digital one? Almost certainly not. He might like the convenience, but certainly not the pixels. Mr. Hogg's photo of the Theatre Royal, the site of today's not-so-lovely NatWest Bank at Ryde, is from one of his 6.5 by 4 3/4 inch plates. To demonstrate the quality of the plates alongside is a blow-up of the billboard on the wall outside, and not a pixel in sight.
And now we come on to my view. And this is Matthew Chatfield. Consider the idea of doing nothing to save the planet. Planting trees has become a barometer for public greenness. During the last general election campaign, Labour pledged to plant 2 billion trees, the Green Party 700 million, and the Conservatives 30 million more every year. In just one day, the Ethiopian government claimed to have planted over 350 million trees. YouTuber Mr. Beast started the #Team Trees campaign in 2019, which so far has planted over 8 million trees with donations from celebrities including Elon Musk, PewDiePie and Jeffree Star. Some serious publicity points are being earned by tree planting, so that's a good thing. I'm not going to complain about people planting trees. But mainly, I'm a bit uncomfortable with the jammifying of tree planting, so it's just competition of numbers. I mean, is planting 2 billion trees better than 700 million? Not always, because not all trees are equal. A Christmas tree will do less to help local wildlife than an oak tree. And planting a tree is no way the same as having a tree. It is easy to plant trees. It is difficult to ensure these trees grow to maturity. So, for example, more than 1/3 of saplings planted along the HS2 railway route in 2017-18 had died a year later. That's a poor success rate. And although these ones were replanted, I think we can imagine what would happen in less scrutinised tree planting projects. So what is the alternative? Actually, for us, there is one, and it's remarkably easy. The alternative is to do nothing at all. In temperate countries such as ours, if you leave a bit of land alone, it will start growing trees all by itself. It will take decades, but trees will come. Here on the island, where deal browsing is almost non-existent, it'll be quicker than most other places. The advantages of this approach are many. It's free for a start, nothing to buy or do. A fence if you want, but that's it. You also automatically get the correct trees for the spot. The trees that survive there will be the ones descended from the other successful trees nearby, so they are well adapted to the area. They won't need staking because they will naturally grow to be strong enough to stand up, as trees do all the time without our help. The final and greatest advantage is that doing nothing costs no carbon emissions. From day one, every gram of biomass that grows is a net gain in carbosequestration. Compare this with traditional tree planting, where saplings are typically shipped from Europe. The ground is excavated and chemical fertilizer is applied. Then trees are protected with chemically treated wooden stakes and plastic tree guards. You've got a long way to go before the new trees, if they survive, score more carbon than their planting process has emitted. So, by all means plant trees, but remember to look after them when you do, and also consider not planting trees too, something that is even better.
Now we'll go on to some of the things that are happening around the island. And there's quite a lot because of half term. There's some rawsome dino fun promised in Ventnor. Mild scares and lots of fun are promised when Dinomania Educates arrives on the Isle of Wight next month. Trixie, the baby Triceratops, nibbles the baby raptor. A baby Brachiosaurus and even a cheeky Pteranodon will meet ticket holders at Rue Valley Sports Centre in Upper Ventnor. Ronnie, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, Nancy the Raptor, and little Al, the bigger-than-life Allosaurus, will also be on hand to make the day a rawsome success. Aimed at children 2 to 14, it includes large and a bit fearsome model dinosaurs, plus a mini museum with real fossils, replicas, and loads of facts. Marine reptiles and more will also feature in 2 90-minute slots at 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. on November the 6th. For tickets, go to www.dinomania.co.uk/events/Dinomania/educates/Isle of Wight.php.
And you're not into dinosaurs? What about Space Rate? The National Trust is putting on Rocket Week at Needles New Battery, with a range of activities to celebrate the anniversary of the launch of Prospero, the first British satellite launched after rocket testing at Highdown and the New Battery 50 years ago on October the 28th, 1971. Visitors can explore the underground exhibition rooms at the New Battery and learn all about the secret rocket testing that took place there. On Thursday, October the 28th, there will be a celebration of the launch of the Prospero satellite by the Black Arrow rocket, with craft activities for children, including satellite model making. An original high-down test site engineer will be on site to answer questions about working on the early British space programme. Along the headline of the Needles Old Battery, families can take part in a shipwreck's trial with smugglers' clues. Joanne King, welcome manager at the Needles Old and New Batteries, said, "It's amazing that at the time the island was at the forefront of space technology and that the Prospero satellite is still circulating the Earth 50 years on. Prospero was the first and by far the only British satellite to launch on British-built rocket. The event will be open from tomorrow, Saturday, to October the 30th, from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. each day. Normal admission applies to the old battery, with free entry for National Trust members. Entry to the new battery is free for all visitors."
And now a musical that promises hilarity and mayhem. Madness and mayhem ensues when an accidental mushroom poisoning occurs among nuns. The hilarious musical Nonsense is being performed by Bembridge Little Theatre Club in November. Nonsense begins when the Little Sisters of Hoboken discover that their cook, Sister Julia, Child of God, has accidentally poisoned 52 of the sisters, and they are in dire need of funds for the burials. The sisters decide that the best way to raise the money is to put on a variety show. This show will be performed at the Bembridge Village Hall at 7:30 on Thursday, November the 11th, Friday, November the 12th, and Saturday, November the 13th. There is also a matinee at 2:30 on Sunday, November the 14th. A three-piece band supports this musical extravaganza. Director Andrew Jenner said, "It's a brilliant, lively show. It has a real feel-good factor." Tickets are available now from the box office on 07841 950 261 or from the Welcome stores in Lane End, Bembridge, or Splash in Union Street, Ryde.
And some of the things again, what's on? Easy read will draw you into life behind bars. It's become a Sunday Times top bestseller and has had rave reviews across bookshop retail platforms. So what is it like to delve into inside Parkhurst? Former prison officer David Berridge doesn't look back in his account of his 28 years working behind the high walls at the world-famous and infamous Parkhurst prison. This book is an easy read, cut down from bite-sized snippets of events and gossips about the machinations behind the prison bars, from the killers and the terrorists to the staff themselves. It draws you in from the start, kicking off with arguably the biggest story to have come out of the prison, the escape of 3 inmates in 1995. Then it goes into Chapter 1, Dave's training as a new recruit at the age of 32. He claims he was nervous, but that doesn't quite ring true. Dave's been known for years as quite the toughie, capable of feats no ordinary human beings consider, such as extreme endurance challenges, including running through jungles and climbing volcanoes. Whatever he was like at 32, he was made of enough steel to put up with the characters of Parkhurst for nearly 3 decades. Maybe it was that toughened him up. Readers not used to prison terminology will love finding out all the slang and meaning. What's a NEPO? What's the Zulu unit? Who's a package? What's the chucky? Islanders who know some of the prison staff of old might have fun playing detective. Can they recognise anyone? Names have been changed, but Dave assures readers that everything did actually happen, unbelievable as some of it might seem. Having said that, it's not a sketch to work out who Mr. Former Glam Rock Star is. What do prisoners do all day? What rights do they have? What luxuries do they enjoy? All is revealed in this eye-opening account. Inside, Parkhurst is definitely worth picking up off the shelves. It's widely available in all major retailers including Asda, Tesco, Waterstones, W.H. Smith and Amazon.
And now the two theatres on the island have got lots of things for you to choose from. Medina Theatre, telephone 01983 823 884, have got the Bootleg Shadows on the 6th of November, which is a Saturday. Andy Fairweather Low on the 19th of November, a Friday. The Country Superstars, which is on Friday the 26th of November. The Big Band at Christmas looks a very festive show, and that's on the Friday the 3rd of December. And the good old favourites, Blake, Christmas with Blake, will be on Friday the 10th of December at 7:30. And the pantomime this year is Cinderella, which will be running from the 23rd of December to the 2nd of January. And there's a little note on the bottom of this advert that said, don't forget, gift certificates are always available from the box office for that perfect present any time of the year. So you can buy a voucher and that would make Christmas shopping very easy. Now, Shanklin Theatre during October and November have got a Little Shop of Horrors from the 21st to the 24th of October. Then we've got Forever in Blue Jeans on the 27th of October. Jenny Eclair is coming on the 30th of October, which is a Saturday. And then we've got Tina Live, which must be a tribute act of Tina Turner, on Saturday 13th of November. And the box office number for Shanklin is 01983 868 000.
And going on at Shanklin as well, there's Jackie Graham, set for Shanklin Theatre Show. Soul and R&B singer Jackie Graham is bringing her repertoire of unforgettable and timeless classics to Shanklin Theatre. Jack Up Events presents Jackie Graham's Greatest Hits Live on Saturday, November the 27th at 7:30 p.m. Jackie achieved international success with the string of hits from 1985 included Could It Be I'm Falling in Love, Round and Around, Set Me Free, Step Right Up and Breaking Away. Also making the Music Guinness Book of Records in the 80s as the first black British female solo artist to have 6 consecutive top 20 hits. In the 1990s, her album Real Life sold more than 800,000 copies in under 4 weeks. Her cover of Ain't Nobody reached number 1 in the US Billboard dance charts. Jackie's passionate love for Motown and soul classics will ensure the show is packed full of blistering, soulful, powerful hits, including Band of Gold, Stop, In the Name of Love, Let's Stay Together, Baby Love, and countless more. Having signed with both Motown Records and EMI, promoters say this is Jackie's most intimate live show to date and will feature a live band. Tickets are available now from Shanklin Theatre's box office. Meanwhile, the Jack Up Events team is also busy organising their Jack Up Christmas event at Lower Hyde in Shanklin. Takes place on Saturday the 20th of November and will feature Slady, an all-female Slade tribute act.
Seeley plans to keep calm and carry on. Many others take more risk than MPs, and I don't intend to change. That was the message from Isle of Wight MP Bob Seeley in the wake of the killing of Sir David Amess last Friday. His words came as Hampshire and Isle of Wight Crime Commissioner Donna Jones pledged that Hampshire Constabulary would be assessing what needed to be done to protect MPs. Mr. Seeley told the county press he accepted the risk in what he did, and he thought guards would put people off approaching him. He said he was more concerned with the safety of his staff. Mr. Seeley said there are other jobs, being a police officer, soldier, or even a care worker, that come with more risk. Many of my meetings are with groups of islanders, and there is no chance that I will cancel those. Paying tribute to Sir David, Mr. Seeley said, many of the remarks aimed at Sir David passing will focus on what a kind man he was, as well as an effective MP. All this is true. He added, if anyone wants to meet me, as ever, all they have to do is contact my office and make an appointment. Since COVID restrictions were lifted, I have been meeting constituents online, by phone or in person again, although we do ask people to explain their issue or concern prior to meeting, as this helps me to be better prepared. I don't really want guards, as I think it will put people off approaching me. The idea that MPs can exist in a security bubble is a non-starter.
And now we're into additional news items, various interest. First of all, there will be better bus stops coming. We can look forward to better bus stops thanks to a £150,000 improvement programme already underway. A number of rural bus stops are being upgraded to improve safety and accessibility as part of an Isle of Wight scheme funded by government grants. The works include introduction of dropped curbs, new road markings and signage, increased hard standing and improved drainage. The council says it worked closely with the Isle of Wight Bus and Rail Users Group and Local Access Forum and Southern Vectis to draw up a list. Completed works so far include Chale, Ventnor, Stanford, Totland and Bembridge. The remaining accessibility improvement programme include Forest Roads, Gunville Road, Newport, Park Road, Cowes, Newport Road and Nodes Road, Northwood, and Whitcombe Road, Gatcombe.
Pupils learn about cross-Solent travel. 9 Acres Primary School in Newport teamed up with ferry company Wight to give geography pupils a first-hand lesson on the importance of cross-Solent travel. 60 Year 2 children travelled to the Fishbourne terminal to find out what kind of vehicles were being used. The trip, which was the first the school had taken since the COVID pandemic, helped highlight the importance of seas and oceans. The school party also stopped off at other coastal locations to view more aspects of the island's maritime environment, including Ryde Pier and Ryde Harbour. Wight Chief Executive Keith Greenfield said, "We already work with partner schools nearest to our terminals to encourage educational and aspirational projects, particularly those that focus on the environment and promote careers in the maritime sector. Who knows, maybe among the group is a future Wight captain."
And police name a woman in a murder probe. Police have named a woman who died in Yarmouth, whose death is being investigated as a murder. Pia Massey, 70, of Yarmouth High Street, was taken to hospital after falling seriously ill and subsequently died. Officers have been called to the High Street on September the 22nd, following concerns raised for the welfare of the woman. Officers continue to investigate the circumstances surrounding her death. As part of the investigation, police have arrested a man on suspicion of murder. He has been bailed until November the 8th, while inquiries continue. A police spokesperson said, "We ask the community to please not speculate on the circumstances and instead provide any information to police on 101, quoting Operation Kalium 4421 03 80671.
A huge increase in confirmed virus cases on the island. One of the biggest rises in COVID cases on the island was confirmed by Public Health England on Wednesday. The data showed 170 cases confirmed in just one day. In the days leading up to it, daily cases had hovered around the 100 mark. The latest cases took the total number of cases on the Isle of Wight since the pandemic began to 14,223 at the time of going to press. The island's COVID rolling rate is 523.6, which is higher than the UK rate of 446.2. This doesn't take into account the most recent daily cases, as the rolling rate figure, measured per 100,000 people, is always 5 days behind. The worst affected island age group for COVID cases remains 10 to 14-year-olds, with the age group's rolling rate currently at 2,715.3. There have been 5 COVID deaths at St Mary's Hospital this month. The latest was on October the 18th. The most recent hospital data available, correct on Tuesday, October the 12th, and published last Thursday, October the 14th, showed there were 16 people with COVID occupying a bed at St Mary's. And now it's time to say goodbye from me, Lynn.
And it's time to say goodbye from me, Imelda, and have a nice weekend. And now we go on to social care, In Touch. When you first register for a certificate of visual impairment and you have informed your local authority that you may need care and support, they have a legal duty under the Social Care Act to carry out an assessment. This assessment is designed to evaluate what kind of extra support you need. Perhaps it is help around the home or navigating the outside world. But problems seem to occur when a local authority does not have the specialist knowledge of visual impairments in order to diagnose the most suitable help, and when nearly blind people are not aware of what they are entitled to. On the programme, we hear from 2 people who have experienced problems in accessing social care assistance from their local authorities. We discuss rehabilitation, a service which offers visual impairment training, and why certain areas of the UK don't have the necessary specialist support. Our guests include Professor Fred Reid, a long-time campaigner on behalf of visually impaired people, and Honorary Professor of History at Warwick University, Simon Labette, Chair of the Rehabilitation Workers Professional Network and a Rehabilitation Officer for the Blind, and John Dixon, the RNIB's Policy Lead on Social Care.
There is no scaffolding news this week.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. There's been much talk about social care in recent months and the need to give it the financial support that it requires. Most of that talk has been about the kind of care some of us will need towards the end of life and how it can be fairly paid for. A very justifiable concern, and one which has consistently been kicked into the long grass for at least the last couple of decades. But what has hardly had a mention from either press or politicians is the kind of support a disability might make necessary, often coming out of the blue and in the middle of life. When people think about the sudden or gradual loss of sight, they tend to think about its emotional effect. But the truth is that there are a great many practical skills which can be relearned, which can make the process of coping far easier than most people imagine. And that's where social care comes in, or it should do. But social care, unlike healthcare, is not a national service and it depends on local provision. And that's where the problems can start. We're going to be discussing why in a moment, but Carly and Penelope have been telling me about the difficulties they've experienced in getting the help they feel they need. Penelope was registered visually impaired in June, and she was told that the registration would be sent to her local authority and she would be contacted about an assessment in a couple of weeks. Nothing happened until she contacted the RNIB, an organisation she hadn't even heard of until then. And only then did things start to move. She explained why she felt so anxious.
I needed help mainly in the home because when I boil a kettle, instead of the hot water going into the cup, it tends to go on the side sometimes. Even going out to do everyday shopping and stuff like that, I can't see the curb, I don't see humps and bumps. And so I really needed some kind of guidance, which I was told I was going to need, like stick training, which I still haven't got at the moment. But things to do in the house, like I can't have a bath because I can't get up because I'm also amputee. So I have to have showers, but I haven't got a handrail to hold on to. So my daughter has to come in and help me with certain things like that. And it got to a stage where I was getting so stressed that I got psoriasis. When my hair dropped out, I started getting lumps in my head, etc., etc.
Can I ask you, how long have you had to wait, and have you had an assessment yet?
I had to wait until September, where, because of the RNIB, social services recruited a new person, and she's such a lovely lady. And as soon as she read my case, she phoned me up, and she's ordered me things to help me in the house, like with gadgets to help make my tea. I don't see colour. Everything is black and white. So she's ordered me gadgets to tell me what colour my clothes are and stuff like that. But it took a while and it caused me anxiety, and I suffer with depression, but it just made my depression worse. I felt like I was alone. I didn't care. I didn't count. I was just another statistic.
Carly, if I can come to you, tell me about your own circumstances when you needed help and what happened.
After I had children, my eyesight deteriorated dramatically, and that's when I needed help.
Tell me about the kind of help that you felt you needed.
Well, at the time, it was just basic things in the house, sort of kitchenware. You know, when you're cooking, chopping veg was becoming difficult. I was listening to Penelope before. Pouring your kettle was always a bit of a disaster. As in, your bench is covered in hot water. So I did get sensory support out a couple of times, and they did offer certain things to help me, but nothing that made a difference. But at the time, nothing we needed to change. It was later on as things developed and got worse, and I tried to seek help from the local council, and nobody would come out and see me.
You asked for help from the local council. How long did you have to wait?
Well, I didn't wait long for the sensory support. When I asked for the council, they went through everything on the phone and said, you can have an assessment, but you won't, because at the time I was living on benefits, you won't qualify for any extra support because your husband should be helping. I had 2 young children, so obviously I was struggling with keeping the house tidy. At the time, that was my major worry.
And what was your feeling about that when they said that your husband should be doing these things for you or helping you?
I think at the time I was a bit shocked. It makes you feel a bit isolated. I wasn't in a very supportive marriage. He wouldn't accept my disability. So, no, that wasn't an option. But the whole independence, you feel like you've lost everything.
And how much do you know about what your rights are?
Well, I probably think I know quite a bit, but I probably don't, because you don't know what you don't know, do you?
No. Can I just ask Penelope the same thing? How much did you know about what you were entitled to?
I just feel like my independence has been taken away from me because I've always worked. I've worked in health and social care, palliative care, end of life. And right now, I just feel like my independence is being taken away. And that's not me. But because I haven't had the support, I feel like I've been let down a lot.
Penelope and Carly. Well, since raising their cases, we've heard from both local authorities involved. Penelope lives under Lambeth Council. They told us that staffing issues had unfortunately resulted in a delay to the specialist sensory assessments undertaken by their rehabilitation officers for visual impairment. They say, we apologise for the delay and for any inconvenience caused by delays in contacting people who've recently received a certificate of visual impairment. We are now fully staffed and extra resources have been provided to support clearing the backlog of CVI registrations. Meanwhile, Carly comes under North Tyneside. Their Director of Adult Services said, we're committed to enabling our residents to live their lives as safely and independently as possible. We're very sorry to hear if someone is disappointed with the support they received. We consider people's own strengths and the support available to them from their wider networks alongside any local authority support. Well, we've subsequently heard that Carly has received a call offering her a further assessment of her needs. So, a little intervention does no harm. But organisations of blind people and rehabilitation officers themselves feel that it's the local nature of the way help is offered that is often bound to lead to inconsistencies throughout the country. Well, to discuss this situation and how we got where we are, I'm joined by Professor Fred Reid, a long-time campaigner on behalf of visually impaired people, and Simon Labbett, Chair of the Rehabilitation Workers Professional Network and a rehab officer for the blind himself. Simon Labbett first, just explain what should have happened in cases like Penelope's and Carly's.
Well, my heart sinks when I hear those two stories, but what should happen is you would be entitled in law to a specialist assessment. The RNIB says within 28 days, so an assessment carried out by someone who has the knowledge and understanding to probe and ask the right questions. And from that point on, presumably a referral would be made for vision rehabilitation. So that's what should happen.
And how typical is what actually happened to them? I mean, how likely is that to be an outcome around the country?
Yeah, 3 months was cited there, and 3 months is a long time. It can be 12 months. And in Lambeth's case, there was indeed a worker in the end. Some areas of the country, local authorities don't have one.
So there are some places who do not have rehab officers?
Indeed. In a local authority, they normally around about 2 or 3, sometimes more than that, but in a few cases there are no rehab workers.
So why the difference between what should happen and what did happen?
I think people don't know what you're entitled to. So when you do struggle, you don't know that the local authority has a duty to support you, or at least to assess you. And so when you do make contact, if you finally get around to doing that, you may be talking to someone at the local authority who doesn't know the service exists in the first place. I mean, a lot of local authorities operate a single point of access rather than a specialist hotline for visually impaired people. And unless you ask the right questions, you may not get through that initial screening process.
So this is lack of specialist knowledge about visual impairment?
It is. Lack of specialist knowledge by the employers themselves. And lack of knowledge, unsurprisingly, on behalf of people who don't know what's out there. And why would you know that there's a specialist service until you come to want one?
Let me bring in Professor Fred Reid. Now, you've written a paper on several aspects of this problem for the National Federation of the Blind, including its history in it. How did we get to this point?
There is a postcode lottery. It really depends where you live, what services you get. And there is a feeling abroad that that's something that has developed recently, say since sort of 2010 with the notorious austerity cuts. But actually the situation has much deeper causes than that. And the basic cause is that in 1947-48, health was set up under central government, the famous National Health Service. But welfare services were left to local authorities. And they ran a patchwork of services for all sorts of people, including blind welfare. Now, that was a situation that was left right up to 1970, when the government of the day legislated for all local authorities to set up a social services department that would bring all the services together. Each local authority was to submit a plan for integrating all the social services under their care, and the government promised large amounts of money annually to build up that degree of universal social services. And so from the 1980s onwards, they introduced what was called a mixed economy, whereby some services are delivered by private organisations, some by voluntary organisations, some by social services themselves. And the truth is that that situation has been left, in spite of many attempts to reform it, including the Care Act of 2014, it's been left as a patchwork. And we've got this postcode lottery that we've inherited from the past. There hasn't been political agreement regulated centrally by central government telling the local authorities how many professional workers they must employ and what standard of service they must deliver. It's simply left to the local authorities to work their budgets as best they can.
Right. I want to bring in Simon Labbit on this question of a national service, because I think you have doubts about whether a national service, as opposed to a system run locally, is necessarily the right thing.
I think vision rehabilitation is all about people engaging with their communities, and I think at a local level, that's the best place to decide what's needed for an area. Certainly, I wouldn't advocate vision rehabilitation goes into the NHS, because what we're talking about here is not a medical model. We're talking about people learning skills and regaining confidence. So it's not really care either. It's not welfare. It's rehabilitation, and it's giving people back skills and self-esteem. So it's hard to know where it fits in.
Well, I was going to ask you both that. Originally this was welfare. Then it was thought of as rights, which may well be the case, but isn't it really education? The kind of services that people need, blind people need, are ways of relearning skills, aren't they? I mean, Fred, would that be a better way to look at it?
There's a lot of merit in that. By the way, I'm not in favour of giving vision rehabilitation to the National Health Service, but there is a kind of medical component in it, in that many people suffer great psychological trauma as they go through the sight loss journey. And the great thing about having a specialist workers is, in part, for this very important reason that of this psychological trauma, they can't just bounce back, in 6 weeks like you get over a fracture. It's not like that. Or they may be sunk in depression over just the trauma of losing their sight and not being able to see their children. I mean, this is a hugely complicated area, and it needs highly skilled, highly trained professional workers. And I agree with what Simon says about locality being the point where it should be delivered, but there has to be an agreed standard of what resources are provided to deliver it.
I should say at this point, we did invite the Minister for Social Care to join this debate. She wasn't available, but the Department of Health and Social Care told us we want everyone who needs it to have access to high quality and compassionate care. Local authorities are responsible for assessing eligibility and individual care packages. We have supported them with over £6 billion to tackle the impact of COVID-19, as well as almost £2.4 million for adult social care. The £5.4 billion announced last month as part of our social care reform plans includes investment in the Disabled Facilities Grant to enable people to live independently in their own homes.
Can I just say there, eligibility doesn't come into this. Rehabilitation is a requirement in the Care Act, and it is not a question of eligibility. If you can reduce or delay the costs of care, then you should be looking at early intervention, and rehabilitation is just that. So it's a cost-saving measure.
Simon Labbit, Professor Fred Reid, thank you both very much indeed. So what are the prospects of change? Well, for the past 3 years, John Dixon has been policy lead on social care at the RNIB. Before that, he was Cabinet Member for Health and Social Care with Cardiff Council. Now, you're attempting to make some changes to deal with some of this, particularly the lack of rehab officers, and there is a care bill going through Parliament at the moment. What are you actually proposing? What are you trying to do?
vision rehabilitation, it is not what we call a regulated service. So while it's a statutory service, it's something that every local authority in the UK has to provide. It's not regulated, so no one checks whether it's being provided or not. The changes RNIB wants to make to the Health and Care Bill would be to make rehabilitation services more widely and vision rehabilitation more specifically regulated services. So for the first time, we would have inspections, we would have standards, we would have reports, we would have a consequence for failure if local authorities aren't providing properly. But it's quite easy to overlook a service that you feel is a nice to provide rather than I must provide this service. And I think that's the difference that this would make. At the moment, no one knows what's going on. If we look at rehabilitation more widely, then these are critical services that we need as a country to recover from COVID. So regulation, for me, is an obvious no-brainer.
Some might think after what we've heard, and indeed you've said it, that it's almost a Cinderella service, that this is just tinkering at the edges. What about this idea that the only total answer to this is a national social care service run along the same lines as the NHS?
I mean, that's what they're looking at in Scotland. And my guess would be that if they're thinking about that in England as well, then they'll let that play out in Scotland and see what happens there. There are pluses and minuses. It is attractive superficially because you would have national standards. You would presumably have reports that were going from across the country to the Secretary of State. But on the other hand, my worry is that a national care service could end up being the servant of the NHS, purely there to get beds clear to reduce delay transfers of care, completely forgetting about the rehabilitation element of it as well, which is getting away from the original point of social care, which is to maximise people's independence. It's not just about bringing someone food on a tray in their living room. It's about encouraging them, giving the tools to get up into the kitchen and make the food themselves.
John Dixon, thank you very much indeed. And that is it for today. We've issued an open invitation to the Minister for Social Care to appear on In Touch to answer some of the questions raised in this programme. We look forward to seeing her. We also look forward to your views on social care. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk, leave a voice message on 0161 836 1338 or just go to our website bbc.co.uk/in touch. From me, Peter Wight, producer Beth Hemmings and studio managers Carwyn Griffith and Jonathan Esp, goodbye.